Hey there, y'all. Good morning from Rocket Dollar World Headquarters here in Austin, Texas. Dan Krzyzanowski here at Rocket Dollar, founder and CEO Henry Yoshida.
Hi, how's it going? Good morning.
Awesome. Henry, I'm excited. This is a pretty pumped up week. We're here at Capital Factory. It's Austin Startup Week, meeting so many great folks raising money and meeting a lot of our investors for the first time.
That's right. It's great, and really excited to be able to talk to folks today live about a new product spotlight that we want to highlight and really share. What this really is basically taking a lot of feedback from existing customers, prospective customers, and sort of what people have wanted to do in investing with control with the Rocket Dollar account. And then we've been working very hard the last several weeks to basically put this together in a product set that we can offer now and really try to deliver to our customers what they've been asking us for several months now.
It sounds great. So let's get right into it for our folks across the country here. Henry and I are here. We're going to talk a lot about the gold features. I'm going to share a little bit about my scenario. And of course, any questions or answers, please feel free to chime in throughout. Here's us two good looking men.
Thank you very much.
But yeah, let's just hop into it.
Sure. So one of the things that we're really proud to announce today is that Rocket Dollar is the first self-directed IRA, self-directed solo 401k provider to provide actual checkbooks and a debit card to make it easier and faster for folks to make transactions with their qualified monies. It's one of the things is that we've gotten a lot of questions from folks about, how can I fulfill my deadlines? How can I get my deal done? How can I make transactions? And when we started the company, we had thought not just about how individuals could make a one-off investment into an alternative product. I mean, alternatives and private investments themselves are a very broad array. Yes. And we've always had this vision where people need to have different alternative and private asset investments to basically build that portion of their portfolio, maybe as a ballast against traditional. As most people on this webinar know, a number of our customers transfer over a portion of their traditional investments, and then they utilize our particular platform and product offering to then go and invest in ideas, investments, deals, things that they know, they care about, they feel like they have some control over as a way to diversify against that traditional account. And the term checkbook control has existed. We've used it on our own webinars, but now we've truly provided the actual checkbook and debit card associated. And we'll talk a little bit about how we use this, kind of using our own Dan Krzyzanowski, who's basically just kind of a wheelhouse customer of Rocket Dollar and Rocket Dollar Gold, because he came from a legacy provider and he's been an alternative investor and has some unique knowledge in a particular space.
And this looks great. I mean, right off the bat, this is a true checkbook. Of course, you can go ACH and wire, but as I know, for somebody that tends to write one check out of my solo 401k a month, this is fantastic. This is really how we've been using our piggy bank checking account for decades here. And this is, I'd say the first in the industry we've seen on this.
Right. And I like to think it's pretty ubiquitous. People actually know how to go now online and, provide information related to a debit or debit card. So on the digital platforms that we have as partners on our site, many of them actually have this feature, but now you can actually fulfill the investment obligation, but you could be doing it inside of a tax protected account provided by us here at Rocket Dollar.
Awesome. Let's take a look at some of the other features we have here.
Sure. Go ahead, Dan. So why don't you talk a little bit about just core and kind of how maybe we developed the beginning of the Rocket Dollar Gold?
Yeah, core is a dynamic product. It's still the flat fee model. So for folks, especially that do multiple investments, particularly if your premise of this account is to write, say, a buddy that flips houses every quarter, a check. Core is great for this. You have the ability to have those consistent investments. That said, the feedback we've been hearing over the last year has been, hey, how can I expand? Folks getting back from Labor Day, they realize they committed to an investment at the end of September. Can I actually get my money in time? And this is kind of the advent of, I feel, what has become gold over time.
Sure, and it originated. One of the features that has been taken advantage of by a lot of our customers at Rocket Dollar from all over the country was an expedited feature. So we kind of use that as a foundational base and thought that, in addition to expedited, what were some of the things that our Rocket Dollar premium customers were asking for, and things that we could basically fulfill in one sort of package price. So the one that I thought was really interesting was that IRA accounts, individual retirement accounts, are a very personalized thing.
Yes.
And we'd gotten a lot of requests from folks to basically provide a customized name, for
Hmm.
example, something that may have been related in the solo 401k space,
Sure.
especially to an existing entity. And that's one of the features that I like. And as you
Hmm.
mentioned, for those that might be not just coming to us because they have one particular transaction, but they're really starting um, to begin to build an alternative and private
Hmm.
diversified portion of their investable asset base, and they're making multiple transactions. So then they can kind of auto invest over time into the same investment
Yeah.
by adding amounts to that, or diversifying across different partners of
Hmm.
ours or different funds that they may know about in the private and alternative space. So those are the two kind of add features that I thought were particularly interesting for me personally, and probably what you've taken advantage of.
Yeah, and what we're seeing now too, and I mean, as you know, we have a private Facebook page for our clients that are, you know, talking. It's a very open group. I appreciate it. And the two things I'm kind of seeing, folks are thinking, what is my second investment now? And particularly, I think I found that great startup. If I'm in a solo 401k, can I move some money? Can I pay, on the seed, not taxes on the tree going forward? So this requires a 1099-R. It's something that takes time. Like, we don't wake up every day say, "Hey, can I do a 1099-R form?" But it's something
Sure.
that's very important, particularly if this is one strategy to have maybe, say, different startups. Is we'll call it the Facebook scenario. You'd love to invest pre-tax and go forward.
Sure.
And likewise, as you know, and too bad we don't have one here, 100 grand candy bars. I think folks in the hall ate them all. But what you're seeing is after this initial tranche of 100K, we are seeing more money come in that gets you above the $250,000 limit. This requires a Form 5500.
Sure.
So I know a lot of folks, it's something that has to be done. It's not really thought about, but this is something also in the gold service that folks have been asking. I'd say, at least dozens of clients, even our first few months that we were up. Hey guys, can you take care of this? Can you look into this? Can I have assistance with this? And I feel this, from the Roth IRA conversion in the forms is a super powerful piece of the gold product.
That's right. Well, without further ado, why don't we talk a little bit
Yeah,
about your own particular situation, kind of some of the things that you'd wanted
sure.
when you started working with Rocket Dollar as a customer.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, I came into the game here with a self-directed IRA. Like a lot of folks also, I had, always doing something on the side, so I qualified for a solo 401k. And, the rub with me, the tough thing was that I made a few investments, and my fees kept going up every year. And, you got to think why. It's like, am I being penalized because I actually made a good investment because I did the diligence and invested in something wisely?
Sure.
And as I mentioned, my buddy that flips houses, he'd always say, "Dan, can you chip in an extra 10 or 20?" And the returns would be great, but the rub is that we would be on the phone for a few hours. Or
And to get this straight, like you're essentially making that investment as a lending provider. Like your
yes,
friend is in the real estate business, but you're providing a loan essentially,
correct.
and the return to you in your IRA is the interest.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's a hard money loan. And, the rub would be is that he and I would both be on the phone with an unnamed third party custodian just so I can move my money from, the same entity. And this is my fifth, sixth, seventh transaction. And after a while, for a smaller dollar amount, it wouldn't be worth it. So I feel it was a bit of an injustice that I'd have to sit in cash earning nothing
Sure.
versus the potential for 10%. But from a small value, that may not make sense at times. So after a while, this became a pain point to the point that on a relatively sizable investment that I wanted to use my IRA dollars, I had to use my personal dollars, which a lot of things, it just wasn't good across the board.
Right. There weren't, obviously, it wasn't going to be the same tax adjusted return
No,
because you're not using protected monies. Well, and that's a great case scenario. So the idea for us and our customers, one of the things that we've really taken from a feedback standpoint is that we wanted to provide a tier that was basically high touch, high service for
hmm,
some of the more, I wouldn't say unique, but I would say just very innovative strategies from
sure,
an investment planning standpoint. That'll be on the next slide. We'll get to in 1 second. But then also have predictability in what you're paying. So as opposed to
absolutely,
not getting blindsided by some percentage based
yeah,
fee, it's a flat, a flat fee. But then of course, one of the main features is that you can call someone who's knowledgeable, who has a
sure,
background in financial services and legal to be able to answer the question, help facilitate the transfer and so forth. So why don't we flip to the next slide and
sure,
talk a little bit about some of these scenarios? Because one of the ones that I get the most often is that people have a old corporate 401k
hmm,
that they then turn into an IRA
sure,
at a particular provider in traditional investments. And then they come to us and say that, hey, could we facilitate transitioning that traditional IRA into a Roth?
Hmm.
So they're basically going to set up the account scenario where now, instead of just kicking the tax can down the road for decades,
Yeah.
they could kick it down the road forever. Essentially,
Yes.
they're just going to pay tax today, and then the net after effect. So that's one of the neat features, that we would basically facilitate a whole transition
Yes.
from a traditional, convert it to a Roth, and then allow those people to take control of their investing monies and go into deals that they know about in the
Yes.
private markets,
Absolutely.
and basically alleviate sort of taxes altogether
Hmm.
inside of a Roth conversion. So that's another scenario of a perfect case study
Hmm.
for a Rocket Dollar Gold customer, where you're making a premium investment, opening the
Hmm.
account on the front end, set monthly fee at a flat rate, very reasonable. But then the offset is that you could potentially be, saving
Sure.
thousands, tens of
Absolutely.
thousands over your investment time
Hmm.
horizon, in avoiding taxes altogether. And we facilitated this transaction, let's say in 2019,
Yeah.
and the net positive in 2039 is going to
Yeah.
be very, very sort of
Sure.
above and beyond probably what you would pay us as a service provider in fees. Um, so that's the one I like. Maybe you can talk a little bit about just uh,
For
phone
sure.
support and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, what's great, I said we don't wake up every day and fill out these forms, particularly if it's from a third party that's not active in the deal. So with that, the benefit here, and take a gentleman like Joseph Wan, so that leads our support team, Brooklyn Law School, JD MBA, ex Merrill Lynch, you're getting a lot of value. If I were to, I'm sure if I met Joe on the street, he'd say I'm going to charge $1,000, which is probably valid, actually. For
Sure.
what you're getting here. So, from our standpoint, we felt service was the big differentiator. And what we've heard back from, hundreds upon hundreds of clients, it's about the service,
Sure.
and it's about the level of folks that have been in the mud before in this particular niche for multiple decades. And, we show that here. So for me, the dedicated phone support is great. It's timely. You're talking to a true professional that, I would argue probably our brightest folks at the company are on the support side.
Sure.
And that's what we lead with here. So that feels really, really good. And, I mean, for the price also, this makes sense. Any sort of questions that I would have, you're thinking
Sure.
about something new, for example, can I do crypto? Can I do otherwise? Or if I have a legacy provider, here's kind of a form they sent me. Can I move this money over? It's a huge benefit to have this ability to reach out to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, then why don't we go to maybe some of the people that Rocket Dollar Gold would be relevant
sure.
for? So we kind of look at it as, in particular, the debit card is very
Hmm.
flexible from a real estate investor standpoint. So this will flip and talk about someone who directly invests in a real estate property. One of the first things that we had learned about when working with our real estate
Hmm.
investor customers at Rocket Dollar was that they felt as if they were in this position where they always had to go back to a third party provider and
Yes.
ask for permission to do every transaction. And this could be simple ones, just maintaining the property. You might have some of these services set up on an auto pay. And
Hmm.
as folks know, when you hold these assets inside of an IRA, you need to make all the transactions out of that same associated
Sure.
account. So the debit card allows someone to more flexibly keep track of the different providers
Hmm.
that might be needed to service that property, but also just for just a quick accounting standpoint, you can see these transactions. I
Absolutely.
think that's what our debit card will facilitate. And then, for folks that are new to
Sure.
self-directed investing, they're going to have questions,
Hmm.
and then they may work with us on the Rocket Dollar Gold side, and they're
Yeah.
going to really be taking advantage of the support, so they can ask about specific investments, how they might
Absolutely.
title,
Hmm.
how they might affect these transactions, and so forth. And you'd mentioned before about hard money lending. I think these are all
Yeah.
relevant for folks that um, getting started in the
Hmm.
self-directed space and or very experienced in managing properties throughout, which to date we have tens of millions of dollars of
Sure.
direct real estate investments right now. So we've
Hmm.
seen a lot of these transactions, and again, this product itself is essentially just um, a feature set that we're rolling out at the request of existing customers that we have today.
Got it. Great. So we still keep it quick and easy. I mean, the sign up with Gold is just as it's been before. It's a quick 5 minutes. Go to Rocket Dollar, click sign up, and select Gold. Within a few moments, enter your personal information, and you're up and going.
Sure. Okay. So basically the same process, and now
Yes.
you have a choice between our legacy core product
Hmm.
and or going with gold. which we just tried to talk a little bit about who this might be appropriate for. And I think the real innovation is true checkbook control realized in actual checks and a debit
Hmm.
card today
Absolutely.
through your self-directed IRA.
Awesome. So I know we shared a bunch. Let's kind of move on to Q&A here. And
Sure.
looks like we got a good one here. If I am a current customer, do I get gold? You could, yes, absolutely. So current customers do have the ability to upgrade to take care of the benefits of gold. Likewise, if you do have a second unique account, you can make the choice if you prefer that this would be in gold, say for your solo 401k, if you're with us with the self-directed IRA
Mhm.
or the core offering.
Sure.
Hmm.
And people do have multiple accounts of this,
Yeah,
so they may decide to tier that based on the account structure.
absolutely.
Sorry. And then the next question.
Let's see what we got here. I see the bubbles popping up here, so excited, folks. Let's see what we got here. Sure. So it's kind of a follow-up to what we just said. How do you upgrade? We will, provide details if you're interested. So we'll be launching the gold product in October. So if you have an interest now, of course, please feel free to reach out to add you to the list. Otherwise, at any time, you'll be able to go into your dashboard. I mean, this is really awesome. I know a lot of folks have been going in, and we see it through the summer, not just their first, but their second, third investment in the investment tracker showing what they're in. In this same dashboard, you'll have the ability to click upgrade to gold.
Upgrade to gold. And then if they have questions and they want to talk specifics about which
Hmm.
particular product tier might be right for them, then at that point they can communicate via chat with our group
Absolutely,
as
yes.
well, right?
Hmm.
Okay. And then, as you mentioned, gold will be launching in October.
Yes,
Today's webinar is to kind of introduce what the unique additional features
yes.
would be. Of course, announce that we're finalizing the physical debit card and checkbook
Hmm.
structure, and this will become available for folks to select on the website in October.
Yes, correct.
Okay, and purchase, which is good because many of these transactions are done before the end of year, so fourth quarter is a pretty busy time.
Yeah, and one thing just to share, the solo 401k, also known as the individual 401k, the account needs to be open by the end of the calendar year to benefit from, say, 2019 earnings. So I was speaking to a few doctors yesterday up in the Northwest, and there was a lot of, I think, excitement to be aware of this fact. So something that they're putting on kind of, hey, October 1st, or when I get that quiet week in December to sign up so I can benefit from this when I start looking at my 2019 taxes.
Okay, and then to reiterate, that's because people can then they could set up their individual 401k. So these are
Hmm.
doctors that are essentially in a solo practice where they're the sole income earner.
Hmm.
Then they would be looking to potentially take advantage of lowering their AGI by $56,000.
Yeah, and it's amazing too. It's not just doctors. I mean, also realtors.
Okay,
I think what we've read, 1.3 million realtors out there that are effectively all 1099. Uh, we've had great feedback when we're up at the show and the NAR show in Seattle of folks really expressing interest here to lower their gross income and really develop a strong balance, maybe to buy a second house, a third house for rental on the side
sure.
here. Once again, with the checkbook control, having that debit card also to keep all the money together, I think is going to be real positive.
Okay, and then why don't we just final question
Yeah,
here, and I'll pose
sure.
it to you since it came through the queue
Okay.
here. But again, we showed the slide earlier, but how much does Rocket Dollar Gold? What's the cost?
Sure. So it's going to be a one-time upfront of 600 and an ongoing of $30 a month.
So $600 up front
Hmm.
for sign up. That'll be the entire account will be set up.
Yes.
That'll cover the cost of the checkbook, the debit
Hmm.
card, and then the additional features we talked about and the ongoing maintenance of the account at 30.
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
that's good to know. Very clear.
Awesome. And then just a quick final one here, and then we'll close. How do I know when gold is available to buy? So everybody that's on our webinar here today or looking at the recording, you'll receive an email when we officially launch it. Likewise, you can subscribe to our newsletter, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn to stay up to date on the release.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, guys. I appreciate everyone taking time to be on our webinar this morning, and greetings from the now second day of fall from
Yes.
Austin, Texas. So we've finally gotten below 95 degrees in temperature.
Awesome. Go gold, folks. See y'all.
Thank you.